Our first panelist today is going to be Jeff Unze, who's at BorderX Lab. He's the president of strategic partnerships for the company. Jeff, are you there?
I am indeed. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing okay today. Thank you.
Good to see you again. So I think to kick it off, maybe you can just give a little overview of BorderX itself, like what the company does, where you guys are, and then also maybe comment on how the company is a little bit different than Alibaba's Tmall.
Yeah, it certainly can. Should I go right into slides or just sort of give you that quick introduction without slides?
Maybe do the quick intro first.
Okay, certainly. So BorderX Lab is a cross-border platform designed to serve the emerging global middle class, starting with China. We're a little bit different from Tmall in that we tend to be very merchant-friendly. In order to get started with Tmall, usually there's some pretty large setup fees. You have to work with a TP in many cases. You have to add extra layers to your marketing. In some cases, you have to set up bonded warehouses. What we're trying to do is really democratize access to the Chinese market. And so we're very transparent about the way we do business. Most companies can get started with us, started selling in China within a week or two of signing a deal with us. We align really our motivations with our merchants in that we get paid more as they sell more. We're not collecting a lot of upfront fees. We enable a lot of technology, or we've created a lot of technology that uses what they've already built. And so we don't require a lot of changes from the merchants we work with. We can usually build to their current technology stack, and their current mode of business. And that's why we're able to work pretty seamlessly with some of these really old and established brick and mortar companies like Macy's and Harrods, and do it in a fairly seamless way.
Great, thank you. And this might be a good time to get the slides going. I'll keep peppering you with questions if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
So I had a question about logistics in general. So what has been the impact of COVID on your logistics, and how have you had to adapt, or if at all?
Yeah, certainly. Well, this is one of the tough things about cross-border is that you're hit by COVID on both sides of the Pacific. So in late February, early March, we started running into a lot of issues because we ship internationally. We use a lot of air freight. And suddenly there were no passenger jets between US and China, or Europe and China. And so a lot of the belly freight that we normally utilize was gone. And so certainly our costs went up pretty dramatically. And also some of our time lagged a little bit as well. We found a lot of ways around that, finding alternative methods to get product to China, but it certainly wasn't easy logistics-wise. I think then when COVID spread to the US, we also had a number of issues in that quite a few of our merchants, including companies like Foot Locker and Nordstrom Rack, they do in-store fulfillment. So a good portion of their inventory isn't in some central warehouse. It's in the stores, and the individual stores are responsible for packaging and fulfilling for e-commerce. And suddenly old Foot Locker stores in every mall were closed, and a lot of the Nordstrom Racks were closed. So it really winnowed the amount of available inventory for us as well. So there's been a number of workarounds that we had to do to sort of combat that.
And what have you seen in China? It seems like the country's been able to control COVID. Are you seeing a V-shaped recovery, or is it a little more leveled off, or what are the trends there?
Yeah, from a consumer standpoint, it's been pretty interesting. I covered my slides a little bit later at the end of my slides, but really what we saw is a lot of our traditional demand, which is in three big categories: beauty, fashion, and shoe and streetwear, that really fell off the cliff right around early March. And people started buying different products from us in different categories that we usually don't highlight as much. So they started buying a lot of, sort of moved down the Maslow hierarchy of needs and started going after safety. So our health and wellness went up, our PPE, and companies like Sam's Club, we started selling tons of antiseptic wipes, which had never been a category for us previously. And of course, we leaned into it to look for new suppliers of things like PPE, masks, anything that could make people feel safe. Then after people were on lockdown for a couple of weeks, we saw things like health and wellness still did well, but we saw a lot of entertainment. So Nintendo's Switch started going crazy when people were bored, stuck in their houses and looking for something to do, ways to stay fit or ways to keep entertained while they were on lockdown. Now we've seen a recovery. The consumer spending is coming back, but I think people are still very value conscious. I believe just in China in general, sales have been going up for e-commerce, but I think a lot of it has been very value based. There were a lot of merchants that didn't sell a lot in Q2 and responded by having a fire sale, which does eliminate, it makes it more price competitive. I think we're starting to see an equilibrium here in Q3. But Q2, unless it was on sale, it was really difficult to make a sale in things like fashion or beauty.
Okay, great. I know you have some slides prepared. Do you want to run through them? I have a couple more questions when you're done, but maybe this is a good time to jump into your deck.
Sure. And hopefully, if you have any questions, just feel free to stop me. I'll be going over these slides fairly quickly. They aren't too content rich, okay? Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, good. Okay, as I mentioned, our company is really designed to provide a best-in-class cross-border shopping experience for the global middle class, but really starting with China. Cross-border market, obviously cross-border e-commerce is just e-commerce where a shopper is buying from a merchant located overseas or the product is being sent from overseas. This market has been growing quickly. When we got started, it was a $300 billion market globally. Now it's over $900 billion this year. In 2015, when we got started, there were only 128 million people from China making purchases from abroad. Now it's closer to it's actually a little bit about 300, a little bit over 300 million. And importantly, 1 out of every 5 e-commerce dollars is actually spent cross-border. We started with China because China is the biggest opportunity. China is 3 times the size, the e-commerce market in China is 3 times the size of the US. They have this huge emerging middle class that likes brands, but it's also open to new brands because some of the brand love only goes back 20 years, 10 to 20 years. It's not as ingrained as it is, say, in the US or in Europe. They're hungry for foreign products. In fact, 40% buy international brands regularly, either from brick and mortar stores, domestic platforms, or from international platforms. Why is 1 in 5 e-commerce yen spent cross-border? There's a number of reasons. Number 1 being authenticity. I'm a novice. I can't tell which of these Burberry scarves is real and which is fake, but there's a number of people who can. The point is when you're paying a premium for a branded product, you want to know that's real. And a lot of Chinese platforms have been rife with fakes from the beginning. I think they've done a good job of policing, but still there's a special sense of confidence when you make a brand purchase from the brand's international website directly. It hasn't been in a bonded warehouse in China, or if it's coming from a trusted retailer like Harrods or Macy's or 24/7. Price asymmetry is a big element as well because of the warehousing, customs, the Tmall partner agency relationships. The cost structure in China changes. It's a little bit different than the US and Europe. And therefore, Chinese domestic platforms, some of the international products tend to be 20 to 100% more expensive than they are on international sites. And right now we're in a place where there may be price asymmetry, but there's not information asymmetry anymore. If you're a Chinese consumer in Shanghai, you can go online, check out the international site and wonder, why am I paying 20% more for the same product? Medium and long tail products, because of warehousing, because of export costs, a lot of companies go to China with their hero products. They don't go with the long tail. A lot of Chinese platforms actually punish you because their algorithm factors in turn rate among all products on your store. And so if you have long tail products that don't sell as quickly, oftentimes your store ranking can go down, and that can cost you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the Chinese consumer is changing a little bit. They may not just want the Michael Kors bag they can get that is that hero bag. They may want that bag you can only get if you take a shopping trip to New York or if you buy directly from the international site. Regulatory concerns. This is certainly something big for health and wellness. Beauty is where we've seen it the most prevalent, though. So many of the top brands in beauty have adopted a cruelty-free stance. And with that, they don't want to do any animal testing whatsoever. But in China, they do require animal testing, either by the company or via a third party. And so how do you bridge that gap? How do you serve the market while at the same time staying true to your ethos? Cross-border is a very easy way to do that. So as long as the product isn't on a shelf in China or it's not stored in a China warehouse, you can sell cruelty-free products in China. And if you don't do this, there's a lot of cautionary tales. NARS, for example, tried to split the difference, do animal testing only in China, but it led to a huge consumer backlash in the rest of the world. Last is unboxing experience. A lot of times brands and merchants have a different way of interacting with the consumer than perhaps a company that's shipping from a bonded warehouse within China. In many cases, it's something like a handwritten note or the way the paper is folded. In other cases, it might be a gift with purchase that's just included for free. And so the idea of having this great unboxing experience is very important to a Chinese consumer, because Chinese aren't only consumers, in many cases, the shoppers are also social media posters, because the average Chinese shopper consumes 5 times more social media content than the average American shopper, and they post 4 times as much. So this shopping experience and sharing your purchases, especially if it's a higher end product, and showing the unboxing experience is very important part of the whole purchase, and it's part of the utility and value.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Oh, you have a couple more?
Oh, yeah, I have a few more, but you know, like I said, feel free to interrupt me at any time. I don't have to get through all of them, certainly.
I just want to be sensitive to the time because I think we have about another 8 minutes. So,
okay, well, I'll go through these a little bit quickly. We have a 2-part value proposition. We capture demand through our technology. We create demand through our content marketing. Capturing demand, we have this great value chain where we're doing a number of different items for companies, including localizing product content, Chinese mobile payment, Chinese logistics, and Chinese customer service. And all of these things are really important for taking the friction out of cross-border purchases. We do this through a lot of proprietary technologies we've developed. Once again, things like an order bot really allow us to work with older companies like Macy's or Harrods that may not open their APIs for other marketplaces, but we can still place orders on those sites on behalf of our Chinese customers, still take the Chinese mobile payment, and still allow Chinese consumers to transact with them without really having some of the difficulties or the heavy tech integration that may be required with other platforms. We create demand. These are some stills from our live streaming. We've started doing a lot of live streaming. We have an in-house team that does 30 content pieces created daily. We work with a lot of influencers, KOLs, key opinion leaders, and KOCs, key opinion consumers. To do a lot of UGC, which offers an important social proof. The top cross-border categories, as I mentioned before, beauty, shoe and streetwear, fashion, but health and wellness, mom and baby, home care, outdoor, these are all coming up quickly, especially as we go through different macroeconomic cycles. A little on our shoppers, which I think is pretty indicative of the average cross-border shopper, pretty representative. 67% are female, usually between that 18 and 35 range. 72% are from tier 2 cities. They may not have access to the big flagship stores that exist in maybe Shanghai or Beijing. Our average order size is about $183. They spend an average of 25 minutes a day on our app searching for new products. Some of the merchants that we've been able to bring in. I think one of the keys for our companies is that we do have an interesting dichotomy between our management team. So the 4 on top are located in the Valley. The 4 below are located in China, in Shanghai and Guangzhou. And it really speaks to our pedigree, where we're really a Silicon Valley company, and hopefully we provide the entrepreneurism and the accountability of a Silicon Valley firm, but at the same time, we are taking advantage of the lower labor costs in China, and we're much better able to spot trends in China because we have this really solid management team on the ground there as well. A little bit about our growth. We're at about 15 million downloads right now. Hope to be at 20 million at the end of the year. Had some nice growth there over the last 5 years. Our sales, we've grown 38x in the last 5 years. Certainly very capital efficient. We're not just buying sales like some Chinese platforms that use their VC money or their IPO money to really subsidize customers for making purchases. We've been close to break even really from the start of our existence. We try not to lose money on any sales that occur within our platform. We're just trying to grow in a very smart way by delivering value. Just 2 more slides. Quick reactions to market conditions. This is really, I think, an element of it. You know, the last 4 years have not been kind to retail in general. We've seen, you know, big companies like Lord & Taylor, Barney's, Neiman Marcus all declare bankruptcy. We've had to pivot very quickly. We had early on a threat of a Chinese-US trade war in the last 3-4 years. We've responded to that by doing some European diversification, bringing on, even in the last 3 or 4 months, we brought on about 10 European merchants, just in case Chinese consumer sentiment turns against the US. We've also developed an English app called Spice to help the cross-border consumer, English-speaking cross-border consumer in Southeast Asia, markets like Singapore, New Zealand, or Philippines. COVID, we've done a lot of category diversifications, which I mentioned earlier. We've also done merchant diversification. We have a new small and medium enterprise initiative in our company called Beyond Global Marketplace, where it's more of a self-serve platform, but they can start selling in China and use all of our enablement piece right from the get-go. And then customs regulatory changes, we've turned this challenge into an opportunity. We were very quick. Once postal route became difficult due to a higher check rate by China customs, we've really leaned into the CBEC, or 9.1% fixed rate shipping method. And we've done it so well, and it's become such a big part of our business. We've actually rolled it out as a logistics as a service, and we're signing up merchants for that. Even if they're not on platform, they can use our logistics solution. And you know, I'd like to say one other word, just about iFly. I've been with the company really since it's before we had an app, and this is my 4th startup. And I would say that, you know, I'm very thankful, as is the rest of the company, for iFly, and Han in particular, who when we were looking for our A round, he led it. He saw the potential in us before we had our explosive growth. He really helped us with a lot of our strategy. He's helped make a lot of introductions. He's even gone so far as to help me with the original version of our merchant value proposition deck, and offered a lot of really good constructive criticism on strategy and on messaging. And so I would like to say it's been a pleasure working with him over the last few years. And with that, I'm certainly open to any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. We only have like 2 minutes left. So if anybody in the audience wants to ask a question, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen you can use. And in the meantime, can you talk a little bit about the Beyond Global Marketplace? So I think you just launched it. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what it is and how you guys decided to launch that product now.
Sure. As I mentioned before, we've always been to a point where we've gone after, our merchant strategy was to go after these big merchants to really figure out what our users wanted. And by signing up a Macy's, suddenly you have, you know, over 1,000 brands that people can pick and choose from. But these integrations, they do, while they're very light on a merchant side, they do require a lot of work on our side. And so it's been a limiting factor bottleneck in terms of bringing more merchants on. We've had a lot of really high quality SMEs approach us and say, we really want to access China through your platform. And so the Beyond Global Marketplace is a way where it's more of a do-it-yourself, where we have an interface, they can upload their products, they can upload the pricing, and they basically give us the content and put the products in themselves. So we don't really have any sort of technology bottleneck anymore. We've signed up about 20 merchants on that so far. We have about 30 in the queue. I think it's been pretty successful so far. We've generated some pretty good sales for a lot of our fairly small merchants. And the great thing about that platform is as soon as they fill out the application and sign up, their business is immediately China enabled, where we take care of all those elements in the value chain, including localization, shipping, what have you, Chinese mobile payment. We're working on some really key integrations such as Shopify, Channel Advisor, and we're working on a couple others that will really allow any company on those platforms to sign up with very little labor. Usually in some cases on Shopify, within an hour, they can be up and running.
Okay, wonderful. Jeff, thank you for your time. Congrats on all the progress. Good to have you in the family, and sure we'll talk soon.
You bet. Thank you.